Welcome back to MBE. Today we're going to go over why it is important to properly design a custom intake valve and not use a shelf valve. Okay, so we'll just go over the simple things right away. First thing we look at is to never put a square groove in it because of the shear point. It makes the valve not very strong. It makes it so you have to file on it and you have to take sandpaper to get it out of the guide without ruining the guide. So we always use a radius groove, and if you do that, you don't have to worry about the sandpaper in the file. Okay. The next thing we look at, let's look at the flow coefficients. Okay. So you have a valve right here. This would be like a typical shelf valve. You got your seat angle. You have your top angle right here. Your back cut angle. That is approximately 65 thousandths wide. Okay. So the difference you have here from a shelf valve to an MBE valve with the proper lengths on the back angles, two back angles on it, and the proper lengths of it, and the proper angles themselves, is this valve will flow about 30 CFM more than this valve. That'll be approximately probably 25 to 30 horsepower that'll be. So more than a mile an hour on your race car. So you can take your perfectly great set of heads, cheapen up on the intake valve, and you've just made them an average set. Okay, so if we're, this intake, most of our stuff has the two back angles, but we do stuff with one back angle. If we do one back angle, it's critical that we choose the correct angle of this back angle and the width of it. A minimum width on the back angle for us is 110 thousandths. We see that the air does not stay attached after that, meaning the hair goes turbulent, and this will help it stay attached. This will go turbulent. Okay. The next thing we'll look at is what angle this is. Okay. A typical for an MBE valve is we're at 10 or 11 degrees right here. You'll see a lot of 12 degree stuff from other people. We don't do 12. Everything, most of the applications we do are 800 thousandths on up lift. So we feel that the weight is more important to take out of here going to the flatter angle here than the 2 or 3 CFM that you're going to see at 300 and 400 lift. Because at 300 lift, the piston is just coming back TDC and it's hardly moving, so it's not bringing any air in. Okay, so, and the next thing we look at when we're designing it, and this goes if it's a power adder, if it's normally aspirated, what the RPM is the cross-sectional areas. So how thick it is in here. So the valve does not flex, because if the valve flexes, it takes the valve job out of it. So there's a lot more than goes into it. Just, we just do this, we do that, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so like on this typical valve right here, this valve weighs about 121, about 121.6, 121.5 grams, okay? So that's, okay, so the weight is very important, but first we look at the weight. Okay, so we choose the proper rim length, meaning the distance from here to here, and then we have the dish that we put in it. Okay, a typical dish in this size valve, this is a 2550, is going to be about 3.5 grams. Okay, so approximately about 3% of the valve weight itself. Okay, so then we look at that. Okay, so you're like, 3%, what's the big deal? Well, it is a big deal because when we go from an 11/32 stem to a 5/16 stem, the smaller stem, now that weight gets up to 8% less. And you're thinking, okay, what's 8%? Well, 8% is about 9.6 grams, okay? Well, that is a big deal because if you think of the engine and if the valve weight is approximately 10% or 8% more, what is that weight at like 9,000 RPM? That weight it's significantly, it's pounds heavier, okay? And I want to show you why that valve weight is so important. So if we just wrote your typical cam lobe, okay? So this is what we have here. Well, if you ever look on the nose of the camshaft, there's never any wear there. The reason is the lifter comes up and then it lands, okay? When you add more valve weight, you create more valve loft. So all we can do is control that loft. This is why the valve weight in a custom valve is so important. So when you add the valve weight, this will typically look like this. Okay? But if you look at the pressure angle and where the lifter lands, so this is your lifter opening the valve up. Okay, so this would be great. We would love that. Okay, and you see how the angle that the lifter lands, it's nice and smooth, right? You see what the added loft what this does. The reason why the pressure angle is great is this is turning. Okay, so as this turns, the pressure angle gets greater. So if this line doesn't come like this, the line comes in to be like this. This is an exaggerated version, but when this lands, that sends everything up through the push rod, creates valve bounce, breaks valve train parts. So when we design the custom valve for you, we make sure it has enough cross-section area with having the least amount of weight possible to make sure that your lifter life goes up, your valve life goes up, your valve job stays in it longer. So there's a lot that goes into this when you buy a set of heads from us, okay? But these are the reasons why, and I hope that this better explains it. So hopefully next time you'll choose the proper person to design your custom intake valve, if it's us or somebody else, whoever it may be. But I think in the long run, this will save you a lot of money in the future. Thank you so much for joining us at MBE.